Have you ever wondered if the personality you present to the world is truly you or just a mask? Most of us live our entire lives thinking we know who we are. I'm an introvert. I'm a thinker. I'm a creative. But what if all these labels are just strategies we developed to survive, adaptations to our families, schools, and cultures? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who founded analytical psychology, didn't just create a theory of personality. He offered us something more radical, a path to discover who we were before the world told us who we should be. You wear a smile when you want to scream. You say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. You chase approval while losing touch with your soul. This isn't weakness, it's adaptation. But Jung's warned us the cost of adaptation can be the loss of the self. In 1921, Jung published Psychological Types, where he introduced 4 core functions of consciousness: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition, each paired with one of 2 attitudes: introversion or extraversion. Sounds academic, right? But here's where it gets personal. One of these functions becomes dominant in you. It's the part that feels most you. But here's the catch. The more you rely on that dominant function, the more the others get pushed into the shadows, into the unconscious. Let's say you're a thinker, logical, objective. It sounds admirable, but over time, your emotional side might get buried. You begin to view vulnerability as weakness, and soon, you're not a whole person. You're just one function, pretending to be a personality. Jung believed that the goal of life isn't to become more of what you already are, but to reclaim what you've been taught to reject. He called this process individuation. It's not about being smarter or more successful, it's about becoming real. So here's the hard truth. You're not just the confident entrepreneur. You're not just the nurturing parent. You're not just the quiet observer. You're also the parts you avoid, the insecure child, the angry voice you suppress, the wild imagination you buried long ago. Jung saw the psyche like a flower. Your dominant function might be the petal everyone sees. But real growth happens when all the petals bloom, even the ones you fear. Because what you think is your weakness might actually be your key to wholeness. What if your awkwardness in groups is the gateway to deep empathy? What if your endless analyzing is your heart's cry to feel again? What if your fear of emotion is exactly what's keeping you stuck? Jung's message is not just psychological, it's spiritual. To become whole, you must go into the dark basement of your personality and light a match. In the next section, we'll explore how each of the 4 core functions can shape and distort your view of reality, and why the traits you judge in others often reveal the parts you've rejected in yourself. Ready to meet your shadow? Jung believed that our consciousness is built on 4 primary functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. These aren't just mental habits, they are lenses. Each one filters reality in a different way. Thinking asks, "Is this true?" Feeling asks, "Is this valuable?" Sensation asks, "What are the facts?" Intuition asks, "What's the hidden meaning?" Now here's the twist. We all have all 4 functions, but we don't use them equally. One function becomes dominant, another auxiliary, a third is weaker, and the 4th, called the inferior function, lives in the unconscious. This imbalance causes what Jung called one-sidedness. Imagine someone who's a brilliant thinker, logical, articulate, clear, but they're emotionally frozen. They can't cry. They dismiss empathy. They might even mock vulnerability. To them, only what's rational is real. That's not intelligence, that's imbalance, or someone ruled by emotion. They feel everything deeply, but they can't finish a project. They sabotage relationships. They avoid facts if they feel cold. That's not sensitivity, it's chaos. When we over-identify with one function, we start rejecting the others. And what we reject doesn't disappear. It waits in the unconscious and eventually comes back, often in self-sabotage or projection. Here's where it gets personal. Let's say you always have to be the strong one. You reject your need for support. Over time, your body might speak through anxiety or illness. That's your inferior function crying out. Or maybe you pride yourself on being the nice one, always agreeable, always keeping the peace. But one day, you explode with rage and shock everyone, including yourself. That's not you losing control. That's you meeting the part of yourself you've ignored for decades. Jung called this the shadow, the part of us we disown, bury, and fear. And ironically, the more spiritual or developed you think you are, the darker your shadow can become, because ego inflation creates the biggest blind spots. The function you least trust is often the key to your healing. Are you a thinker? Your path is through feeling. A feeler? You must learn to think clearly. A sensor? You must open up to intuition. An intuitive? You must ground yourself in facts. Jung wasn't saying become someone else. He was saying become whole. Because wholeness is not perfection, it's integration. Jung went even further. He combined the four functions, thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition, with the two directions of energy, introversion and extraversion. This gave us 8 psychological types. Let's break them down simply, because understanding them will change the way you see everyone around you, including yourself. 1. Extroverted thinking. These people worship logic. They want rules, systems, laws. They trust what can be measured. They may look like scientists or CEOs, but they often struggle with emotions, spontaneity, and intimacy. If you challenge their worldview, they won't argue, they'll correct you. And if you still resist, they may see you as wrong, irrational, even dangerous. They're not evil, they're addicted to structure. 2. Introverted thinking. Deep, reflective, abstract. These are the philosophers, theorists, or reclusive geniuses. They chase inner truth, not public applause, but they may forget to shower or show up or say, I love you. They live in their minds and often find the external world overwhelming. To others, they can seem cold, but inside, a storm of ideas. 3. Extroverted feeling. They're warm, expressive, and crave harmony. They read the room, they know what to say to make people comfortable, but they often suppress their true needs to keep others happy. They're praised as selfless, but behind the smile, they may feel lost, unseen, or emotionally drained. They don't want conflict, but their avoidance of truth can become a silent war. 4. Introverted feeling. Quiet but deeply emotional. These people feel everything, but say almost nothing. They're loyal to their values and often carry private ideals the world will never know. On the outside, they seem detached, but inside, they're writing poetry in their minds. Their danger? Believing that no one will ever truly understand them. 5. Extroverted sensation. Grounded and energetic and fully alive in the present moment. They love food, touch, art, movement. They're masters of detail, but they may avoid reflection because it interrupts their joy. When overwhelmed, they numb themselves with stimulation. They don't like being told, slow down, but that's exactly what they need. 6. Introverted sensation. These people live through their memories and inner impressions. They may seem passive, but their inner world is rich, symbolic, and profound. They're often nostalgic, precise, and surprisingly spiritual, but they may get stuck in the past or become disconnected from the real world. They sense too much and speak too little. 7. Extroverted intuition. These are the visionaries, the dreamers, always chasing the next big thing. They can turn anything into a possibility, a business, a revolution, but they struggle with follow-through. They often jump from one project, one relationship, one identity to the next. They're brilliant, but unstable unless grounded. 8. Introverted intuition. Mysterious, quiet, and often prophetic. These are the shamans, the mystics, the deep internal seekers. They see patterns before others see events. But they're also prone to isolation, fatigue, and dissociation. When misunderstood, they retreat into fantasy or depression. Now here's the real danger. Each type has a shadow, a blind spot. We tend to project our unconscious onto others. An extroverted feeler might see a cold thinker as cruel. A thinker might see a feeler as irrational. The intuitive sees the sensor as boring. The sensor sees the intuitive as delusional. We judge others for the functions we've repressed. Jung's message wasn't to label people, it was to wake you up to your own distortions. If you know your type, you can spot your one-sidedness, and more importantly, you can stop projecting it onto others. You don't need to fix your personality. You need to balance it. Jung said something shocking. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What did he mean? Your behavior, your desires, your suffering. So much of it isn't coming from you at all. It's coming from the unconscious programs running in the background. And at the center of that unconscious lies what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is every part of yourself you've rejected. Your rage, your envy, your selfishness, your fear, your wildness, and your sensuality. It's the version of you were told was bad as a child, so you buried it. You pretended it wasn't you, and instead, you created a mask, the persona, the good student, the nice girl, the tough guy, a version of yourself that fits in. But here's the problem. What you repress doesn't disappear. It mutates, and it returns through projection. You'll see your shadow in the people who trigger you, in the people you judge, in the people you hate. That's why Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. If you deny your anger, you'll be surrounded by angry people. If you deny your sexuality, the world will feel threatening. If you deny your need for love, you'll attract coldness. You're not reacting to them. You're reacting to your own reflection. That's the first level of the shadow, but it goes deeper. Jung identified 4 main archetypes within us: the persona, the mask you wear to survive society; the shadow, the parts of you try to hide; the anima saw animus, your unconscious opposite, masculine in women, feminine in men; the self, your integrated, complete nature. Let's talk about the anima or animus, because this one ruins relationships. Men often project their inner feminine onto women. They don't love the woman, they love their fantasy of her. That's why love can turn into hatred so fast. When the illusion breaks, they feel betrayed. But the woman didn't change. The projection collapsed. Women do the same. They project their inner masculine onto a man. He becomes the savior, the father, the hero. But the moment he fails to be that, resentment floods in. We aren't falling in love with people. We're falling into our own unconscious. To truly relate, to truly love, you have to take back the projection. You have to see the other as they are, not as you want them to be. And that's impossible until you know yourself. Carl Jung didn't believe life was about becoming perfect. He believed it was about becoming whole. Wholeness doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means integrating your flaws, your contradictions, your inner battles, and still choosing to live with integrity. Jung called this journey individuation. It begins the moment you stop asking, how do I become what the world wants me to be? And start asking, who am I really? Individuation is the process of reconciling all the parts of your psyche, the conscious and unconscious, the persona and the shadow, the masculine and the feminine, the hero and the demon. It is a long, messy, sometimes painful journey, and it's deeply personal. No one can walk it for you, but if you don't walk it, your unlived life will haunt you. The dreams you never dared to speak, the anger you swallowed for decades, the love you didn't know how to receive, they all live in the shadow. As Jung said, in each of us, there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from how we see ourselves. To know yourself, you must be willing to face what you've rejected, to sit in silence with your fears, to hold space for your wounds, to listen not to the voice of your ego, but to the quiet truth that lives deeper inside you. And as you do, you begin to notice something strange. The people you hated begin to look human. The wounds you carried begin to feel sacred. The story you've been living begins to make sense. And slowly, you stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop projecting. You stop trying to be loved. And start being real. That's when life changes. Because when you finally become yourself, you realize that's who you were meant to be all along.